In the grand kingdom of Eldoria, where the sun bathed golden castles in its warm glow, a young queen named Seraphina ruled with grace and wisdom. Her beauty was renowned across the lands, but it was her kind heart and sharp intellect that made her beloved by her people. One fateful day, a foreign king named Cassian arrived at the royal court. His kingdom, Valmoria, had long been known for its strength in battle, yet he sought peace and alliance rather than conquest. With piercing eyes that held both sorrow and determination, King Cassian knelt before Queen Seraphina, presenting a rare and mystical gift, an enchanted crown said to be crafted by the ancient sages. "The fate of our kingdoms is entwined, Your Majesty," he spoke, his voice steady yet filled with unspoken emotions. "I offer you not just an alliance, but my heart as well." Seraphina, though wise beyond her years, felt the weight of destiny pressing upon her shoulders. Would she accept his offer and bind their fates together? Or was there more to the enchanted crown than met the eye? Seraphina gazed at the crown resting in Cassian's hands. Its intricate golden filigree shimmered under the candlelight, embedded with gemstones that seemed to pulse with a hidden life. The queen hesitated. She had heard tales of enchanted objects, gifts that carried both blessings and curses. "The crown is beautiful," she said cautiously, her emerald eyes meeting Cassian's. "But magic often comes with a price. What is the true nature of this gift?" Cassian's expression darkened for a moment, as if recalling a painful memory. "It is said that whoever wears this crown will see visions of the past and future," he admitted. "It has been in my family for generations, passed down from rulers who claimed it granted wisdom, but also burdened them with knowledge too great to bear." A murmur spread through the court. Some whispered of divine power, while others feared it was a curse disguised as a gift. Seraphina remained silent, her mind racing. If the crown truly held such magic, accepting it could change the course of her kingdom forever. "You would entrust me with such a thing?" she finally asked. Cassian took a deep breath. "I would entrust you with far more than that, Your Majesty." His words carried a weight beyond politics, beyond mere diplomacy. For the first time, Seraphina wondered if this alliance was not just about their kingdoms, but about something far more personal. Seraphina hesitated, her fingers hovering over the crown. The weight of Cassian's words settled in her chest like an anchor. Visions of the past and future? Such power could shape the destiny of her kingdom, but at what cost? Cassian studied her expression, then stepped closer. "I do not offer this lightly," he said, his voice lower now, meant only for her ears. "I have seen what the crown can do. It does not lie, but truth is not always kind." The queen's breath hitched. She had spent her life making decisions for her people, weighing risks against rewards. This was different. This was personal. Slowly, she lifted the crown from his hands. The moment her fingers made contact with the metal, a strange warmth spread through her veins. A flicker of light danced at the edges of her vision, like shadows moving in candlelight. And then, a rush of images flooded her mind. A battlefield drenched in crimson, a castle engulfed in flames. Cassian, his face streaked with blood, reaching for her, calling her name. Seraphina gasped, the crown slipping from her grasp. Cassian caught it before it hit the ground, his gaze sharp with concern. "What did you see?" he asked urgently. She steadied herself, her heartbeat a frantic drum against her ribs. "A war," she whispered. "Destruction. And you," she swallowed. "You were there, wounded, but I don't know if you were my ally or my enemy." Silence stretched between them. Around them, the court was oblivious to the storm that had just erupted in Seraphina's mind. Cassian's jaw tightened. "Then the crown has spoken," he murmured. "And now we must decide what it means." Seraphina's breath came in short gasps as she steadied herself, the weight of the vision pressing on her like an iron chain. Cassian studied her, his expression unreadable, but his eyes burned with a silent intensity. "You must tell me everything you saw," he said, voice firm yet measured. "Every detail matters." Seraphina hesitated. The images had been vivid, too vivid. The castle in flames, the bodies strewn across the battlefield, the look of desperation on Cassian's face. What if this vision was inevitable? What if she was merely a pawn in a fate already written? "I saw the kingdom burning," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "The sky was black with smoke. People screamed." She paused, the memory of Cassian's bloodied form flashing in her mind. "And you were there, wounded." Cassian's brows drew together. "And was I fighting for you, or against you?" Seraphina shook her head. "I don't know." The uncertainty gnawed at her, a seed of doubt taking root. A long silence stretched between them before Cassian exhaled, as if coming to a decision. "Then we must prepare for both possibilities." Before Seraphina could respond, a loud commotion erupted outside the grand hall. The heavy doors swung open, revealing a breathless soldier clad in the Queen's colors. His face was pale, his hands trembling as he dropped to one knee. "Your Majesty," he gasped, "the western border has been breached. The enemy rides for the capital." A cold dread settled in Seraphina's chest. The vision was already beginning to unfold. She turned to Cassian, their eyes locking. No longer just an advisor, no longer just a mysterious figure with secrets. Now, he was either her greatest ally or the force that would bring about her ruin. "The war has begun," she murmured. Cassian nodded grimly. "Then we must decide. Do we fight the future we saw, or embrace it?" The war drums echoed through the castle walls, a steady, ominous rhythm that set Seraphina's pulse racing. The enemy was closer than they had expected. Cassian stood by the great war table, tracing the map with a gloved finger. "They're moving faster than we anticipated," he muttered. "If they reach the capital by dawn, we won't have enough time to evacuate the people." Seraphina clenched her fists. "Then we must stop them before they get that far." Cassian glanced up, his piercing gaze meeting hers. "How? With what army? Half of our forces are still stationed at the Eastern Front. We are outnumbered." A knock at the door interrupted them. A young scout entered, his armor scratched and dirtied from the journey. "Your Majesty," he addressed Seraphina, bowing deeply. "The enemy's general has sent a message. He wishes to speak with you, alone." Cassian's expression darkened. "Absolutely not. It's a trap." Seraphina, however, was already considering the possibilities. If their general wants to negotiate, that means they aren't as confident as they seem. This might be our only chance to turn the tide of battle without bloodshed. Cassian took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Or it could be a way to separate you from your guards and end this war before it begins, with your death." Seraphina inhaled sharply, but her decision had already been made. "I will meet him." Cassian exhaled, his jaw tightening. "Then I'm coming with you." The scout hesitated. The general was clear. Only the Queen may come. A tense silence filled the chamber. Cassian's hands curled into fists. I do not trust this. Seraphina placed a hand on his arm, her touch light but firm. Neither do I. But if I don't go, how many will die needlessly? This is my kingdom, Cassian, my responsibility. For a moment, his resolve wavered. Then, reluctantly, he nodded. If you go, you will not go unarmed. Seraphina smiled, though there was no joy in it. I would expect nothing less. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Seraphina rode toward the enemy's camp, her heart pounding with every step her horse took. She had no doubt. This meeting would change the course of fate itself. The night air was thick with tension as Seraphina approached the enemy's camp. Torches lined the path, flickering like restless spirits in the darkness. Shadows moved beyond the perimeter, soldiers watching her every step. She stopped at the entrance, where a tall figure awaited her. His silver-plated armor gleamed under the moonlight, and a deep crimson cloak draped over his shoulders. General Aldrich. So the famed Queen Seraphina arrives at last, he said, his voice smooth but laced with something unreadable. Seraphina met his gaze, unflinching. You asked for a meeting. Here I am. Speak your terms. Aldrich smirked, stepping closer. Eager, aren't we? Very well. He gestured toward a tent behind him. Shall we discuss this privately? Seraphina hesitated. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap. Yet she nodded. Lead the way. Inside the tent, a lavish table was set with maps, wine, and exotic fruits. Aldrich poured himself a glass but did not offer her one. You rule with passion, Queen Seraphina, he said, swirling the wine in his cup. But passion alone does not win wars. Surrender your kingdom, and I will ensure your people are spared. Seraphina's jaw tightened. You mistake passion for resolve. I will not hand over my kingdom. Aldrich sighed, as if disappointed. Then we have no choice but to take it by force. Seraphina leaned forward, eyes locked onto his. You wouldn't have called this meeting if you were certain of victory. What is it you truly want, Aldrich? For the first time, the general faltered, his smirk fading. A flicker of something, doubt, crossed his expression. Seraphina seized the moment. You know this war will cost you more than you can afford. But perhaps there is another way. Aldrich narrowed his eyes. I'm listening. Seraphina took a slow breath. This was the moment that could decide everything. Would she find a way to end the war without bloodshed? Or was she already caught in the enemy's web? A heavy silence hung between them. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows on the walls, and Seraphina could feel the weight of Aldrich's scrutiny. He studied her, as if searching for a weakness, a crack in her resolve. You propose another way, Aldrich said finally, his tone cautious. And yet, you stand before me with no army at your back. Why should I listen? Seraphina allowed herself a small, knowing smile. Because I understand you, Aldrich. You are not a mindless conqueror. If victory was certain, you wouldn't have invited me here. You know that a prolonged war will drain your forces. Even if you take my kingdom, you will inherit nothing but ruins and rebellion. Aldrich exhaled slowly, setting his goblet down. You speak of pragmatism, yet your kingdom has defied me at every turn. What assurance do I have that your people will accept any peace you offer? Seraphina stepped forward, her voice unwavering. Give me 3 days. Allow me to speak with my people, my generals. If I cannot present a path forward, one that spares both our kingdoms, then you may march upon my lands and I will not flee. Aldrich's fingers drummed against the table. 3 days is a short time to change the fate of a war. But a long time to prevent a meaningless one, Seraphina countered. The general's expression was unreadable, but after a moment, he leaned back in his chair, nodding. Very well. You have 3 days, Queen Seraphina. If you fail, there will be no further negotiations. Seraphina inclined her head in acknowledgement. Then we both have much to consider. As she turned to leave, she could feel Aldrich's gaze lingering on her, as if he too questioned what path this meeting had set them upon. Outside, the night was colder than before, but Seraphina did not waver. She had 3 days to prevent a war, and she intended to use every moment wisely. Outside, the night was colder than before, but Seraphina did not waver. She had 3 days to prevent a war, and she intended to use every moment wisely. She pulled her cloak tighter around her shoulders and stepped onto the cobbled streets, her breath misting in the frigid air. The city was quiet, save for the occasional creak of wooden shutters and the distant murmur of night patrols. Every shadow seemed to stretch unnaturally, whispering secrets only the darkness could understand. Seraphina's thoughts raced. She needed to find Lord Alistair before dawn. He was the only one who could grant her an audience with King Edric, the one man who held the power to halt the impending bloodshed. But Alistair was a man of caution and secrecy. Persuading him would not be easy. She turned down a narrow alley, the dim glow of lanterns casting flickering patterns on the walls. Footsteps echoed behind her. Seraphina quickened her pace, her heart pounding. Had she been followed? Or was it merely her own paranoia? A hand suddenly grasped her wrist, firm but not unkind. She spun around, ready to fight. But the face that met hers was not one of an enemy. It was Rowan. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he murmured, his green eyes sharp with concern. "I don't have time to argue," she whispered back. "I need to reach Alistair before morning." Rowan exhaled, his grip loosening. "Then I'm coming with you." There was no time to protest. Together, they disappeared into the night, unaware that their every step was already being watched. Outside, the night was colder than before, but Seraphina did not waver. She had 3 days to prevent a war, and she intended to use every moment wisely. Rowan's presence beside her was both reassuring and dangerous. The tension between them had always been an unspoken force, one she had spent years resisting. But here, under the moonlit sky, away from the constraints of duty and politics, the air between them felt charged with something far more potent than mere urgency. As they slipped through the quiet streets, Rowan's hand lingered at the small of her back, guiding her gently but firmly. The simple touch sent a shiver through her, not from the cold, but from the heat it ignited within her. "We should rest before we reach Alistair," he murmured as they ducked into an abandoned stone chapel, its walls worn by time. "You haven't slept in days." Seraphina opened her mouth to protest, but Rowan was already shrugging off his cloak, draping it over her shoulders. His fingers brushed against her collarbone, lingering for a moment longer than necessary. She swallowed hard, her heartbeat thrumming in her ears. "You're burning up," he noted, his voice softer now. "You need warmth." "I don't—" Her words caught as he stepped closer, his body radiating heat against the chill of the night. Rowan cupped her face, his thumb tracing the curve of her cheek. "Tell me to stop, Seraphina," he whispered, "and I will." But she didn't. Instead, she closed the space between them, her lips finding his in a kiss that unraveled every restraint she had ever held. It was slow at first, tentative, a silent acknowledgement of the years they had spent pretending this wasn't inevitable. Then, As he pulled her flush against him, the kiss deepened, turning desperate, aching. The war, the mission, the world beyond these walls, all of it faded into the background. In this moment, there was only the warmth of his hands roaming her body, the intoxicating scent of leather and steel, the way his breath hitched as she pressed against him. "Seraphina," he groaned against her lips, his voice laced with longing. She silenced him with another kiss, fingers tangling in his hair as they stumbled backward, lost in the need that had been denied for too long. The night was cold, but between them, a fire had already begun to burn. His name was a whisper against her lips, swallowed by the fervor of their embrace. Lucien's hands traced the curves of her body, mapping every inch as if he were memorizing her. He lifted her effortlessly, pressing her against the cool stone wall, the contrast between the cold and the heat of his touch sending a shudder through her. "Tell me to stop," he murmured against the sensitive skin of her throat, though his grip on her hips betrayed his own desperation. "I won't," Seraphina breathed, arching into him. That was all the permission he needed. Their bodies moved in sync, a slow, deliberate dance that built with every ragged breath, every whispered name. The tension between them snapped like a bowstring, and they fell together, lost in a tempest of desire and raw emotion. Hours passed, marked only by gasps and murmured promises, and when exhaustion finally pulled them under, Seraphina lay tangled in Lucien's arms, her fingers tracing lazy circles over his skin. But even as she drifted between wakefulness and sleep, the weight of reality pressed against her. Outside these walls, war still loomed, and dawn would come too soon. The night had not yet yielded to dawn when Seraphina arrived at Lord Alistair's keep. The grand iron doors loomed before her, their intricate carvings illuminated by the flickering torchlight. She could feel the weight of the night's frost on her cloak, but she had no time to hesitate. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, pushing past the sentries who wordlessly granted her entry. Inside, the warmth of the great hall clashed against the icy resolve in her chest. Lord Alistair awaited her at the head of the chamber, draped in a dark velvet robe, his piercing gaze fixed upon her with a knowing smirk. "You came," he mused, swirling the wine in his goblet. "I wondered if your pride would keep you away." Seraphina lifted her chin. "I came to negotiate." Alistair chuckled, setting his goblet down. "Negotiate? My dear queen, you misunderstand. This is not a council chamber where words hold power. You want peace? You want to stop this war?" He stepped toward her, closing the distance with deliberate slowness. "Then you must show me how badly you want it." Her stomach twisted, though she refused to let it show. "You would risk the fate of thousands for your own indulgence." He reached out, tracing a finger along the edge of her sleeve, his touch both possessive and taunting. "Do not feign shock, Seraphina. We are both rulers. We both understand the weight of sacrifice." She clenched her fists. She had known this meeting would not be easy. She had known Alistair would test her limits. And yet, the lives of her people hung in the balance. He leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. "Swear yourself to me for this night, and we shall talk of peace." Seraphina's heart pounded, but she did not step back. Instead, she met his gaze, letting him see the fire that still burned within her. If this was the price of salvation, she would pay it, but on her terms. "Then let us begin," she whispered, her voice steady, even as she felt the weight of the night closing in around them. Seraphina stood before Lord Alistair, the flickering candlelight casting long shadows across the chamber. He reclined in his chair, a smirk playing at his lips as he observed her, his fingers drumming lightly against the armrest. "You came," he murmured, amusement in his voice. "Before dawn, as promised. Now tell me, Your Majesty, what are you willing to sacrifice for peace?" Seraphina met his gaze, her expression unreadable. She had known this would not be easy. Alistair was a man who thrived on power, who enjoyed bending others to his will. But she had not ruled her kingdom through submission. She had ruled through cunning and strength. She stepped forward, her fingers tightening around the dagger hidden beneath the folds of her cloak. "I am here to negotiate, not to yield. If you seek to exploit this moment for your own pleasure, you will find me a more formidable adversary than you anticipated." Alistair chuckled, rising from his chair. "Brave words, but bravery alone will not save your people. I hold the armies, the resources, and the power to bring your kingdom to its knees. What do you offer in return?" Seraphina took a slow breath, controlling the rage simmering beneath her skin. She knew he expected her to surrender, to barter herself like a mere object, but she had no intention of being a pawn in his game. Instead, she took another step closer, her voice calm but laced with steel. "I offer something greater than submission. I offer an alliance, not built on coercion, but on mutual benefit. You may hold power now, but a war will cost you dearly. I propose a pact, one that will ensure your dominance remains unchallenged and your name remembered not as a tyrant, but as a leader who forged a new era." Alistair studied her, the flicker of interest replacing his arrogance. He had expected a queen pleading for mercy, not one wielding strategy like a blade. "And why should I trust you?" Seraphina allowed herself a small smile. "Because I do not make empty promises. Accept my proposal, and you will gain more than just a fleeting conquest. You will gain an empire." The room was silent for a long moment, before Alistair finally laughed, stepping back. "You intrigue me, Seraphina. Very well. We shall negotiate as equals." As dawn broke over the horizon, Seraphina left the chamber not as a conquered queen, but as a ruler who had bent fate to her will. Alistair smiled triumphantly as he saw the fiery determination in Seraphina's eyes. He took her wrist gently, but with undeniable authority. "Come," he whispered, leading her up to the upper chambers of the castle. Each step Seraphina took felt as though it bore the weight of the world. She knew she was sacrificing her dignity to save her kingdom, but she had no other choice. In Alistair's opulent bedroom, she bit her lip hard as he slowly removed her cloak. "Don't worry, my queen," Alistair murmured into her ear. "Just one night, and the war will end." Seraphina closed her eyes tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks as she allowed Alistair to do as he pleased. She imagined herself somewhere else, anywhere but in this room. When it was over, Alistair stroked her hair. "You did the right thing. I will keep my promise." But deep inside, Seraphina felt a part of herself die that night. She vowed that no matter the cost, she would protect her people. Such was the burden a ruler sometimes had to bear. As the pale light of dawn broke across the horizon, Seraphina stepped out of Lord Alistair's estate. Her gown bore faint traces of the night before, but her eyes burned with unwavering determination. From the shadows of the grand hall, Lord Alistair watched her go. He had taken what he wanted, or so he thought. But Seraphina had never been a pawn for anyone to control. The early morning wind whispered through the empty streets, carrying the weight of an uncertain future. War loomed ahead. Fragile negotiations hung in the balance, and the path forward remained unclear. Clenching her fists, she murmured one final vow. The game was far from over. Back in her chambers, Seraphina stared at her reflection in the mirror. The weight of what she had done pressed heavily on her heart. Yet, she reminded herself it was for the greater good. Her people would live, and that was all that mattered. Later that day, she summoned her most trusted advisors. "Prepare the documents for peace," she instructed firmly. "We must ensure this never happens again." Though the shame lingered, Seraphina resolved to rise above it. She would be the queen her people needed, even if it meant bearing scars that would never fully heal. And so the sun rose once more over Eldoria, casting its golden light on a kingdom saved by a queen's sacrifice. A sacrifice known only to a few, but felt by many.